What's up, everyone? Jason Brown here, the king of programming, back for another program review. It's been a minute since I've done one of these, and I've got some really great program reviews on tap, so make sure you subscribe to the channel because there's a lot of great stuff coming your way. Today, we're gonna get into the Daily Flow from Dr. Colin. I've seen this guy on Instagram, seems like a pretty knowledgeable coach, seems like he's doing some great things in his program, but I wanna see if the program stacks up. We're gonna get right into it. Hang on to the end of this video. I am going to tell you why this program is completely useless or completely useful. All right, guys, so let's get right into it. We're back in the Playbook app. I've done a lot of reviews in the Playbook app thus far, and they have been abysmal, to say the least. I've seen some of the worst programs, overkill on volume, stuff everywhere. Every which way you name it, I've seen in this app. And I think that, going through this app and trying to find some better programs makes sense to me. But I want to hear from you guys what you want to see. Some of the programs that I've been getting as suggestions to review don't have free trials. And of course, I don't want to pay for every review I'm doing. And I also want to show things to people that are free. So if you are looking for a new program and there's a free trial, obviously I'm not sharing something that someone would have to otherwise pay for. So as a coach, that's something that I feel strongly about. So give me your suggestions for future reviews. Now, let's get right into this program. So if you're not familiar with Dr. Colin, I believe he's a DPT, so a doctor of physical therapy, and I believe that he does a lot with kettlebells, which I will be the first one to tell you that I have been enamored by kettlebells for a very long time. I think they're an incredible tool. I've got a ton of great videos on kettlebell training, so make sure to check that out. Kettlebells do a lot of great things, and I think that, if we're thinking about a training program as a whole, kettlebell is a tool like anything else. Dumbbells are a tool. Specialty bars are a tool. Sleds, things like that are tools that we can potentially leverage to get better results. So I think that would I design a program just for kettlebells? Yes, I have, and I actually have programs that have specifically just kettlebell training. However, I think that bridging the gap and having things like the barbell in there, dumbbells in there, of course, there are many other things that we could potentially delve into. Makes sense to me. So I think that, again, it's a tool and we can use it to our advantage. So we're gonna check out what this program is all about. So this is a full gym program, so it relies on having more than just kettlebells. And it looks like what we've got here for this first week of training is full body strength, which is a push-centric day. We've got an aerobic and biceps day. We've got an active recovery day, and then a full body strength pull. And then we have a high intensity interval training, chest, triceps, shoulders, and that is it for the week. So overall, I already like this template. I like the way that things are structured. Let's see how the program plays out, but I like how there is a structure here that makes sense in terms of different aspects of the body. Likely there's gonna be some things with energy systems that we can potentially use to our advantage. But again, this is just looking at the house of the program, which is the template. Anytime I look at programs, I'm thinking about the framework of that program, and any good program has a framework. So if you are writing your own program, have a framework and then start plugging your things in. Plug in your full body strength day, plug in your energy systems development day, plug in your active recovery day. Those are all things that have a logical place within a program. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you'll see programs that have no framework. And I think if you look at programs and you don't see patterns, that is a problem in and of itself. So let's get into the first day. So full body strength, this is a push-centric day. We've got a movement prep, and then we've got some back squatting with a barbell, 5x5, 60 seconds rest. For those of you that have been in here before and seen my reviews, you probably know what I'm gonna say about that. It's not enough rest to build to any type of appreciable loading with that. I think that if you're thinking about building over the course of 5 sets, to say 85% of your 1 rep max, resting 60 seconds is not going to be enough. So we definitely need to increase that rest interval. Do I know the goal? I don't see the goal other than He's got you building, looks like you're entering your weight. So if I was going to really nitpick, I would say, number one, 5x5 back squat, we'd have a clear intent. Okay, I want you to build to a near 5 rep max, or I want you to use a 75% of your 1 rep max for all 5 of those sets. That would make it very clear. On the other end, we could potentially leverage something like speed work for 5 sets. But to me, the end user, it's not clear to me what he wants. Now, as a coach, I would say 60 seconds rest. If I was doing speed work with that, then maybe that would work. But overall, I think that there is some issues here as far as the rest interval is concerned. It's not long enough to do what we need to do, even if it was speed work. So even playing devil's advocate and saying, well, maybe it's speed work and maybe he's trying to do 5x5, you know, with a running clock or just with a small bout of rest. It's not long enough to allow us to move with good bar velocity. So I think that this is potentially off. However, exercise order is good. Oh, I didn't even mention, this is because I don't do these reviews enough anymore. I always forget to mention, what am I looking at? I'm looking at the fundamentals: exercise order, exercise selection, sets, reps, and rest intervals, conditioning, what types of conditioning, where is it within the program? Obviously, I just mentioned the framework, and I think that anytime I look at these programs, those are the things that are most important to me out of the gate. Now, we can start getting into different types of goals and different types of nuance with program design. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat, but those are things I'm looking at. So right out of the gate, exercise order is good. We've got a barbell squat as our main movement, not enough rest. We've got a barbell bench as our secondary movement. So again, he's going with a full body push emphasis day, 60 seconds rest, same thing. No clear intent, doesn't tell me what I'm doing, and there's not enough rest to build. If you're gonna build, 5x5, typically we're gonna be building to around 75, maybe even 85%, but it's likely that if this is your first day on this program, you're probably gonna be wanting to leave a little bit more in the tank. So I think either way you split it, 60 seconds is not enough rest. And then we get into a full body push strength circuit. So this is 4 rounds of a split squat, a squat clean, a half kneeling kettlebell press, a tricep dip, and a deficit push-up, resting 60 seconds between rounds. So we've got a total of 8 reps per movement, so 32 reps for each pattern here. And again, very heavy on the pushing. I don't like breaking up full body this way. So my personal preference would be to do, to have some hinging work, to have some upper pulling work, to make this day a little bit more balanced. Because the thing you're gonna run into with this circuit is that because of the nature of it, where you have essentially a same pattern on top of the same pattern, you're going to a single leg, to a bilateral, and then to 3 pressing patterns within the same session after already doing heavy barbell bench. There is going to be a lot of local musculature fatigue with this, and it's going to basically prevent you from doing what we need to do and staying away from failure. So you are definitely going to hit failure, especially if you're using load, which he has a loaded dip here. There's really no way to split this. You're going to run into local fatigue issues. 60 seconds rest, not going to be enough to replenish and get you to a place where it's going to be more sustainable. So I think overall this circuit is a novel idea, but it's probably not going to be realistic for the normal person. What I would do personally is I would have, again, some pulling patterns. I would have a hinging pattern. I would have a upper pull pattern, so we can essentially rest different musculature while we're doing different patterns. So for me, this would be a split squat, and then I would have likely a row, then I would have a press, then I would have maybe another, a hinging pattern, maybe an RDL, and maybe some core movement in there to kind of round that circuit off and to make it better and a little bit more sustainable. He finishes things off with a core finisher, 2 minutes of ab wheel rollout. Again, personal preference, ab wheel rollout. That's a movement that 8 to 10 reps per set is probably going to be good for most people, maybe going as high as 12 to 15% for some people, but I would put some rest in between those. And of course, with it being 2 minutes, you can decide based on your own ability, but I would get more descript. This is, again, my own personal preference. I get more descript, and I would say 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps, resting 60 seconds, and then that would round out the day. So that's day 1. I definitely don't think it's bad, but I definitely think there are some things that are off and could be better, and those are the things I just mentioned, all right? If you are someone that is serious about training and you're looking for peak results year-round without having to sacrifice your body, download my free programming sample. The link is in the comments. So let's go on to day 2, aerobic plus biceps and back. So if you remember, on day one, we didn't do any biceps, we didn't do any pulling patterns, it was all pushing. And having some of this work on Tuesday, I think makes a lot of sense. Having it done with aerobic work, I don't know if I would do that. I would keep those things separate, but that's just me. So what we have here is we have 4 rounds of 2 minutes, 2 minutes of aerobic activity, and it gives you the choice, which I like. And then we have Turkish sit-ups, which I like. It's a great pattern for 8 reps, and then resting 30 seconds. Rest interval in this case will probably be fine because, again, the nature of it is aerobic, which is what I'm assuming based on what it says here. And so you're not going to need a very long rest interval to have that play out correctly. But let's just add this up here. So we've got essentially 2 minutes, 2 minute rounds, and then the sit-ups are going to take you probably around a minute. If you're doing those all in a row, probably around a minute to get those done. And then we're resting 30 seconds. So essentially, what do we have per round? We have 5 minutes per round. So this is a 20-minute, around a 20-minute workout, including the rest, around 25 minutes. So yes, is it more aerobic? For sure. Again, I would have something on the longer end of the spectrum, and then he has at the end of this, weighted chins, hammer curl, tabletop row, alternating dumbbell power snatch. So again, some conflicting things. We're gonna run into local musculature issues. I'm gonna wait and see how the rest of the program plays out, but I would potentially move this to a different day. And again, when I get into shifting things around, sometimes when you shift things around in a program, it's better off just to start over. So I can't sit here and change someone's program, but I can give some suggestions, and I think that's probably the best thing to do. But again, having this work at the end here where we have a chin-up pattern for 8 reps, so 32 total reps, and then a hammer curl, and then a row, and then a dumbbell snatch. You've got, again, a lot of the same musculature being worked over and over, and then 60 seconds rest, so not a whole lot of rest. Now, you can do something called an agonist superset or even a giant set where you're working the same musculature. Doing that all the time isn't something I would recommend, but it's certainly some type of shock method that you could use to potentially spark some new growth. And the way it's done here, you're definitely gonna run into some issues. If you're relatively strong and you're doing those chins weighted, 32 reps is gonna be a lot of volume with a weighted pattern. Done body weight, obviously might be a little bit more realistic, but there's certainly some things to think about here. And really what I mentioned on the first day is kind of similar to the second day as far as just local fatigue issues. So let's move on. So now we're going into active recovery, which I think is a good idea based on what I've seen. And it looks like it's just some soft tissue work, which again, is soft tissue work gonna be something that is gonna make or break? For me, I don't think it's gonna be something that is hugely worthwhile. I would use some aerobic work, some steady state aerobic work here. But again, that's my own personal preference. So I don't really have a whole lot to say about that day other than we need to move into the next day, which is our pull day. So on this day, we've got trap bar deadlifts, 5 sets of 5, 60 seconds rest. Again, not enough rest. Barbell power clean after a trap bar deadlift. I would flip this order. I would go with a power clean first, and I wouldn't do sets of 5 with a power clean. I would do sets of 2 to 3 reps per set. Sets of 5, Olympic lifters, if you're watching, do you want to do sets of 5? Can you? Yes, you can. Do you want to? Probably not, especially if you're going to use a decent load, which again, he's got 60 seconds rest. Not enough rest, and it's high. That's a high rep Olympic lift, okay? So for CrossFit people out there, I know you're like, oh, that's no problem, but I was a CrossFit person, and I'm telling you that if I was doing this, 25 total reps with a heavy power clean, it would be very rough, and it would actually put me in a position where I am going to be relying more on my cardio than I am my actual technique. So that's not something I would do. What I would do is I would flip the order. I would go something like, well, he's got 25 total reps, so I'd probably go like 8 by 3 or even like a 10 by 2 with a power clean. Then you could use the 60 to 90 seconds rest and be okay with that, unless it's something that's very heavy, like 80, 85%, I'd probably go, on the 2-minute range. Then I'd hit my trap bar deadlifts. Again, 60 seconds is not enough. He's got another circuit. So this is single leg RDL, kettlebell swing, high pull, ring pull up. So if you remember the day before, we did a lot of pulling, upper pulling. We did weighted chins, we did hammer curls, we did some rows, we did some dumbbell snatch. So I'm already going to this day. Actually, that was 2 days ago, excuse me. But even still, 48 hours, what I would do to make this program better is I would spread some of these movements out, sprinkle some of these movements into the full body days. So instead of just having be a push or a pull day, I would just do full body, and we have all of those things, and it's distributed a little bit more evenly throughout the week. and it also allows us to stay away from relying so much on local musculature that it's going to have a negative impact on the workout. So again, I just really don't love that. Hanging straight leg raise is our core finisher for 2 minutes. So if you've seen, we've had a lot of anti-extension. We've had our ab wheel rollout, where we know at the very end position we are going into a lot of extension and trying to resist that extension. He had a Turkish sit-up, which again, you get a lot from that. I think it's a great movement. You get a lot of obliques. You obviously get the shoulder stability aspect of it. There's some motor control there, but I think we could do a little bit better just with diversifying this core work a little bit. So, and again, I'm nitpicking now, but this is what I'm here for. All right, so for our final day of this program, we've got a high-intensity interval training day, chest, triceps, and shoulders. All right, so just to recap, we did a lot of pulling on the day before, which again would make sense with going into more push-centric day, but let's see how this breaks down. So we've got a metabolic core conditioning circuit that consists of a salt bike, burpee, frog crunches, and then we have a chest and tricep shoulder circuit, hollow hold floor press, which is a cool novel movement, dumbbell bridge crush press, weighted tricep dip, which we already did in this program in the week, and kettlebell push press. All right, so we've got a lot of the same musculature being worked in the same session. So when we're doing it in a circuit-based routine, like is mentioned here on all of these training days, you are gonna run into local fatigue issues, okay? If you're doing a conditioning workout that consists of a lot of push-ups and a lot of pull-ups, you are gonna run into local fatigue issues. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we're gonna eventually hit the wall. We might not be able to complete all of the prescribed work. We also are going to be limited in terms of conditioning, at least, because we are having to stop and rest and trying to, get into a position where we can get through that entire set. So I think that this is always an issue. When you see a conditioning piece that is made up of all local patterns, things like our push-ups, pull-ups, pull-ups even a bigger pattern than a push-up, but it is very much determined by your ability to perform that work and sustain it across those sets. That's why when I see programs that have like 100 total pull-ups, more than likely, if you're a normal person, you probably can't do 100 total pull-ups. It's not really a volume range that is appropriate for 9 out of 10 people. So these are things that you have to consider. When you have a style of programming that is push and pull centric, you are gonna get into an issue when you try to do it in circuit-based work. Now, if you wanted to do pull day or push day, full body, and you did just lower and upper, and you focused on pushing patterns, and you did one pattern at a time, then you probably wouldn't have any issues. Alternatively, if you did a squat and you did a press, could you pair those two patterns together and have it play out pretty well? Yes, you could. So there is some ways to do it that would be a little bit more realistic. Trying to do it in a conditioning setting is going to be tough. And again, everything I just went through and showed you, it's gonna make it tricky to do that and get through all of that work. So overall, I think this is an approved program, but there are some things that I would change to likely make it better, and those are the things I mentioned. So let's go through the pros and cons. Pros of the program is that there is a clear framework. I know what I'm doing on each day. The next pro is that there is a lot of novel exercise. I think that he's doing a lot of things right with exercise selection, but I do think that, of course, there are some things that we might need to consider, which we'll talk about in a second here. Some other pros of the program is that it's definitely not overkill on volume. I've seen programs that just go completely haywire with volume. This is not it. Another pro of the program is that there is aerobic conditioning in there. There are some things in there to mitigate some of the fatigue that's accumulated throughout the week. So I think overall there is some things that are being done pretty well with this program. Cons of the program, however, though, are exercise order is some of the days is off. The volume prescriptions on some of the days is off. Like I mentioned with the power clean 5x5, 60 seconds rest, trap bar deadlift, 5x5, 60 seconds rest, barbell back squat, 5x5. You get where I'm going. It's 5x5 with 60 seconds rest. It's not enough rest. Some of the order was a little bit off. And again, I'm really nitpicking on that stuff, but I think that if you put that power clean first and you change that scheme and you add a little bit more rest, things will go better for you. Now, the major nitpick for me is when you focus on one aspect of the body, be it pushing patterns, and you try to do that in a circuit-based routine, you are going to run into issues. So it's a good case to say, hey, instead of doing all pushing, we would do push-pull. We would do some hinging, some upper pull, some upper press, some squatting, and you have that in your circuit if you want to do it circuit-based. Now, if you don't want to do it circuit-based, then it's a lot easier to manage that fatigue and maybe pair patterns or do one pattern at a time. So overall, I think that, again, the local fatigue aspect of it is my main issue. The rest intervals could be considerably better. We need more rest. If we're going to do a heavy back squat or heavy anything, we need to rest longer. But overall, not a bad program, one of the better ones in the Playbook app. And that is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoy the review, and until next time, results are king.